just want to think some more about consciousness, even though it's a really problematic term. It just feels as if I need to try and get inside it again. And particularly I'm thinking about the difference between being conscious and being conscious of. Because I've heard, some folk and some mystics, if you like, make a distinction between those terms. This thing called consciousness, or being conscious, or pure consciousness as it's sometimes referred to, which is consciousness without an object of that consciousness. So here I am in this field and I am conscious of this peculiarly shaped stick on the ground. There I am, my attention is focused upon it, it's in my consciousness, I am conscious of the stick. My consciousness has a direction, a vector, a line of intention, and there it is. There's an object at the end of my gaze, and it's the object of my consciousness, or one of them. But if you're a supporter of the idea of pure consciousness, or if you would accept that as an idea, then you would say that consciousness doesn't need to have a content. There doesn't need to be a stick in my mind for my mind to be up and running. In fact, my mind can be clear. And a lot of the practices associated with things like meditation and mystical practices seem to have that as at least one of their aims, to clear the mind, to have the mind as a mirror, as a blank mirror, as a those kinds of metaphors come out a lot really, or as an empty space, pure whiteness, one taste, all these kinds of phrases. But I think personally, and this is just me, I don't buy it. I think consciousness necessarily is always conscious of. That's my take on it really. And I know that if anybody watches this video who's had an experience of those things, it might be very tempting to say, well, you've obviously never experienced this thing, you've never experienced divine union through prayer, or you've never experienced the various states that meditation could take you to, or you've never taken this particular drug, or you've never been hit on the head, or you've never had those things. But I have, I do have. I'm not an adept by any means, but I have experience of all of those things. In my youth, I took quite a lot of drugs at various times, and experienced lots of different states. Not just recreational states, but states which suggested different kinds of relationships between mind and body and world. I've done various bits of meditation and different kinds of spiritual practices in the broadest sense, which have produced effects in me. I have some experience of what something like being one with everything might be like. I have experienced that kind of thing. I've experienced out-of-body experiences. I've had a fair range of different kinds of states really. So I'm not speaking as a complete outsider to those ideas. But even so, I still think that even whilst in those states, there doesn't appear to be an object of consciousness. There just appears to be this, in the particular states I'm talking about here, there just appears to be this kind of undivided, singular, clean, empty space, kind of. It's hard to describe, isn't it? But just that kind of thing, in which there is no separation between subject and object, it's all one, that kind of thing. Even though I've experienced that, I'm 99% sure that that it's not what it appears. I think there are the language is crap, but I think there are objects of consciousness going on there, or rather the machinery of consciousness is still functioning, if I can bring in machine metaphors at this point. I think the machinery of consciousness is still functioning, and whilst it might not be a kind of focal attention in the way that the nice stick was, it doesn't provide this nice, clear, easily detached, separate, visualizable, and I think the idea that it seems to be visual in the way that it's separate from the body is visual, or that visual is separate from the body necessarily. Just because it doesn't provide that kind of a thing doesn't mean to say that it's not going on, And I suspect it's something to do with bodily state, actually. I think I'm leaning here on Thomas Metzinger's stuff about, what's he call it, the self-image model or something. I can't remember what he called it now. But he talks about the a version of core self, core consciousness, as originating in and constantly being reinforced by the basic background noise of the body, so to speak, the the basic settings that your body has, the biochemistry, the muscle tone, what your sphincters are doing, just all that stuff that's going on, which is constantly being monitored. Your body is monitoring all that stuff, and all that information is being sent upstairs to the brain, for sure. You're not aware of it, but it's all being sent up there, and it kind of provides the background, as I say, the background noise for your existence, almost like the kind of carrier frequency for the mind. That's how I kind of visualize it, that there's this constant carrier frequency coming up from your body, which is your basic setting. And if you get yourself into a particular state where you ignore all the changing stuff that's happening out there, you know what I mean? Just take you don't have to close your eyes, but take your attention away from that. Take your attention away from what's happening to the ears. You know, hear it and let it pass, hear it and let it pass. And all the other changes that's taking place. And just let everything just go quiescent. Then I think that carrier frequency, that constant noise, that little background hum from the body, like the distant hum of the bypass, is you don't become aware of it, but that's the thing that persists. You know, until you die, that's what persists, doesn't it, really? That carrier frequency. And I think it's that carrier frequency that you're kind of in tune with, if I can put those terms, that you're kind of in tune with when you're in some of those states, this feeling of oneness or divine unity or something like that. You know, when the feelings of the body break down, or the separation between body and world start to feel as if they're broken down and there's just this one taste thing going on. Well, I may be wrong, you know, I may be wrong. So yeah, that's. I've got more to say on it, but I'll make a separate video. So this idea that there is consciousness and then there is consciousness of, I think is wrong. Consciousness is always a consciousness of, because the stuff of consciousness itself, the background noise, the substrate, the container, the carrier frequency, however you want to phrase it, of consciousness is constant, and is the ocean that we swim in, and it's the ocean of our own embodiment, I think.